My biggest regret with Bitcoin is just that I did not have more money to put into it in the past.
Yeah, I think that's every Bitcoiner. Everybody's like, man, I wish I had more money. I wish I would have had, I wish I would have had 40 grand 2 years ago so I could have bought 2 full Bitcoin more or whatever. Like, but yeah, it's the point of why I tell people, I go, just buy some, and you can buy as little as $10, own it and hang on to it, and you'll make money eventually. Like I remember I bought the last top in 2021 at 68 or 69,000 or whatever. And then as it started dropping, I bought it on the way down, and bought it on the way up again, and I've just been increasing my position whenever I can. And sometimes I'm buying little amounts, $20, $30 worth.
Yeah. That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. And because now when you're sitting there going, you start crunching these numbers on going from a 2 trillion to a 10 trillion market cap. $1 million a coin is not some outlandish thing.
It's not. It's actually not, which is what people don't understand. They hear that, and it's usually actually people that don't understand. And like you said about Max Kaiser, it changes you, because once you understand what it is, you're like, oh, you're like, this is not expensive at all. I just wish I had more fiat to throw into this, and I think a lot of people that are shocked by the 100,000 really aren't following what's happening. And you know what's crazy, Graham? It's because, and I think this was huge for me. So you've been talking about it for years, about the mainstream media lying. And I think a lot of people saw that with, what happened recently with, Joe Biden, because they were constantly saying Joe Biden is, sharp as the tack and he's great. And then, watching the debates, it was really scary, like how, far gone he was mentally. But for me, the big wake up call with the mainstream media's lies was actually crypto, because I had studied it. I was learning about it. I was watching, YouTubers who are familiar with it. And I'm watching people that are scientists and blockchain specialists. And it's a very niche group, right? And so that's what keeps a lot of people away, is they're like, well, maybe I don't understand this, so it is a very niche group. And they're, the top of their field, MIT, programmers, things like that. And they're saying all these wonderful things about Bitcoin and crypto. And then you turn on MSNBC and they're saying it's a scam, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's not, and of course, you see Bank of America scrolling in the background and JP Morgan Chase scrolling in the background. And I mean, there was a Washington Post article I read that literally the title was "Bitcoin is bad for Black people." And I was like, what is this? So that crypto was really what woke me up to the lies of the mainstream media. And I never thought I would have said that, because I was not one of those people that's like the mainstream media, but the lies were so bad. You can go back and they're archived. They don't even try to hide it. You can go back just a year, 2 years, and look at some of the mainstream articles in the New York Times, Washington Post, or on MSNBC about Bitcoin and crypto. And it's all insanely negative, and it's all incorrect information. None of it is accurate. It's all basically saying it's a scam. It's not real. It's bad for the environment, even though I have a crypto miner, hooked up to my solar panel on my house. All the news is that it's so bad for the environment. It's terrible. It's awful. And it's just, their lies are so outlandish and so easily provably wrong that it really woke me up to the mainstream media's lies. That's what woke me up, was the Bitcoin and crypto revolution.
All it takes is to get knowledgeable on some area and look on where there's credible information online, and then you watch the media say something and you're like, and I don't like saying, oh, fake news. I don't, because that to me sounds like that's just Trump. He just complains whenever somebody calls him out on something because he can't admit he's wrong. But it's not that even the fake news, it's that it's deliberate. Sometimes they'll get the story right, but they'll just tell you part of the story. Like they deliberately only give you part of it. Like Bitcoin's a great example. Boy, it uses all this electricity. And then, so it's bad for the environment. They don't talk, and in those stories, they don't talk about all the electricity just ATMs use, that fiat banks use. Like they don't.
That the U.S. military uses.
Oh no, they're not going to do that. They're never going to talk about that. They're never going to talk about the number one polluter on planet Earth is the United States military. They're not going to talk about that. Like they just deliberately, if they're not outright lying, they're at the very least deliberately leaving stuff out and not giving you the full picture.
It's not necessarily misinformation. It's just like you said, not the full picture. Right. And sometimes it's really disheartening. So, I was just talking about this with a friend. It's like Bill Maher, John Oliver, Jon Stewart, they're supposed to be the smart guys of comedy. And I really, really it's not like they're Larry the Cable Guy, right? They're supposed to be the smart guys of comedy.
Right.
And so I was looking towards them to say something really intelligent about Bitcoin. Bill Maher had a segment on crypto, and he chose to, I don't know if you saw the segment, he chose to talk about Cumcoin. That's not a joke.
I know.
And it made me so sad because I'm like, Bill Maher, you're supposed to be like the smart guy of comedy and like say like witty political stuff. And he chose to do the segment on Cumcoin. And I'm like, you know what? This is actually like a huge thing, a huge revolution for the people, a huge thing for the everyman. All these like, these comedians that are, part of the mainstream media system say that they're for the working class. They say that, they're like, go blue, like, it's like you said, that it's like, you always make fun of, it's like the military tank with the rainbow flag on it, right? It's like, you're supposed to be team blue. You're supposed to be team, working class and all this. And then you're like talking about Cumcoin. Like, what about talking about how this is an opportunity for people to actually get out from underneath the central banks, which cause a lot. I mean, people don't understand. I don't like to use the word evil, but I mean, this is the reason inflation is not just some imaginary thing. Inflation is what makes you work longer hours, spend less time with your family. You have, less savings, the rich get richer, the poor get poor. This is literally the cause of so many evils in the world. And it's caused by the central banking system.
Yeah. And there's you bring up so many points. First of all, one of the things I realized when I started doing this show almost 8 years ago now, as I was like, oh, Bill Maher and them, they're kind of part of the machine. Bill Maher doesn't give a shit about the working man because Bill Maher has an 8-figure, he's got 8 figures in assets. I mean, he's worth, high, probably 30 to 40 million dollars, if not more.
Trevor Noah is worth like 100 million, I think.
All of them. They're all worth a lot of money, and you don't get that kind of money, and you don't get the mainstream. The corporate media doesn't allow you to get to that level
to have a voice.
You don't have a voice.
If you're going to say anti stuff.
No, you can't. You have to say, so Bill Maher is he's just like a rich liberal in LA that has this like televised cocktail party with other rich people where they talk about the world's problems. And, he gave that rant after the election where he's like, this is why the Democrats lost. And there was some truth to what he said. He's like, it's Democratic Party is now the party of the liberal, of the elites. And I'm like, yeah, you're part of that, Bill. You're part of that thing. You're ranting against your own show and your own brand. And you bring up points too about, I think there's a multitude of reasons why Harris lost, not the least of which is there's a lot of people in this country that still haven't recovered since the 2008 housing crash. I mean, there was 6 million foreclosures. That's not 6 million people. That's 6 million families. So you're talking about somewhere between 15 to 20 million people were affected. That was, 16 years ago. So people that were kids or teenagers are now in their late 20s or 30s, wanting to buy a house. They can't. It's not affordable. They saw their parents wiped out. You took away 6 million families' potential for intergenerational wealth to be passed down. You pass your house down to your children. That's gone. I mean, I've lost my house to foreclosure. My quality of life is worse. It's totally worse than it's been from 20 years ago. No two ways about it. And look, I still live in a nice apartment. I've got a job, but it's not, I don't have the wealth. The only thing real wealth that I have is now Bitcoin. I mean, they took my condo would be worth $1.5 million on today's market. I bought it for $550 in 2003. I mean, so that's part of.
But they're out of touch, Graham. That's what
out of touch.
They have no idea what's happening. They're going to, $50,000 a plate dinner parties, fundraisers. And, like I said, I'm an independent. I did not vote for Donald Trump, but, people say, well, look at all the money, Elon Musk gave to Trump. The Democrats had billions of dollars. I mean, Harris raised so much money.
$1.5 billion of what Harris had. And this is the thing when people say, yeah, but look at Trump's backed by the billionaires. I go, yes, of course. This is why I'm an independent. He's backed by the billionaires too. But you know what he's better at? Talking populism. It's fake populism. It's right-wing populism, but he knows how to talk to the working class people and make them feel like he's going to do something for them.
That's why Bernie was so successful. Yes. And the Democrats completely ignored. They totally ignored everything that happened. They did not learn anything from the Hillary Clinton, situation. They did not learn anything. They're like, well, we'll just put another, and then it's, oh, well, everyone's racist, everyone's sexist. but also people are very angry. They're angry about what happened. They're angry about that they feel like they can't get ahead. And how can you get ahead when you're getting a 2% raise and there's 10, 20, 30% inflation? It doesn't make any sense. And
Yes.
so crypto, I think, and Bitcoin is that outlet for people. And not just that. So people are also, so you asked again about, back to the original question, why 100,000, why $1 million? Millennials are priced out of the housing market across the country. Millennials and Gen Zs are priced out of the housing market. You just said, you bought your condo for 550, it's now 1.2. I own a house as well in the Valley. My house that I purchased has almost doubled or quadrupled in value. I could not afford my own house today.
Yes.
If I didn't get in before the inflation went crazy. So anyone in my generation, where are they going to get? Again, I do not live in a nice neighborhood. I live in the North Valley, and my home is almost worth $1 million. It's insane. $1 million to live in the North Valley. I live in an up and coming neighborhood. I'm not in Studio City. I'm not in Sherman Oaks. I'm like, way out there. And I could not afford my own house now, and neither could most people. How can someone afford $9,000 a month for a mortgage? That's what my mortgage would be at market. So, with the 7% current interest rates and with the $1 million price tag, that it would be the current market value. So I'm essentially trapped in my home. So millennials are opting out of home ownership, but some millennials still want to save and invest and build some type of wealth. And so for them, a lot of them are disillusioned with Wall Street because of 2008, 2009. A lot of them are priced out of housing. So what is the next asset? For them, crypto and Bitcoin specifically is not a gamble to them. It is a sure thing because all they've seen is Bitcoin go straight up. And so that is another thing. We have this huge population of Gen Zers and millennials saying, you know what, let me put $1,000 in Bitcoin. And that collective wealth is making also the price go up.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a great meme that floats around on Bitcoin Twitter that shows the price of a house 10 years ago was like the average home price in America was like 250, 260. And it would have taken you, whatever, 25 Bitcoin to buy it. Now the average home price is 400 grand and it would take you 4.5 Bitcoin to buy it, or like it would take you a little over 4 Bitcoin to buy it. And they're showing, and it's sort of a great example of see why Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. It's like, and there's another chart that shows what people think Bitcoin is doing this against fiat like that. And actually Bitcoin is a flat line and fiat is dumping.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying is the sinister reason that it's going up. And it's a positive for us as hodlers, but it's actually not a good thing for society. So it's kind of like Mad Max. It's like, it's like you want to have it so you can preserve your wealth and be able to do something with it, but it's also a scary reason.
Yes.